Hello and welcome back to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mayer, and I am thrilled to have you join us for another episode. Before we dive in, don't forget to check out our website at themfgconnector.com and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates and behind the scenes content. Today, we have a truly inspiring guest with us, Catherine Bitting. Catherine's journey is a fascinating blend of love, relocation, and a deep passion for the manufacturing industry. Originally from Philadelphia, Catherine found her way to Wichita after meeting her husband in college, embarking on what she fondly calls the marry, move, make a family journey. Catherine's career path is diverse, with experience spanning multiple industries, always with a focus on building relationships and pushing projects forward. Her journey into manufacturing began at WSU Tech, where we actually met, and she fell in love with the industry. Over the past 6 years, she has been an influential figure in the field, particularly through her work with Project MFG and the makers of the Plains Summer Camp, which introduced middle school students to manufacturing skills. You can read more about her impactful initiatives in the community. You can read more about her impactful initiatives in the Community College Daily article linked in our show notes. Currently, Catherine serves as a program manager for trademarks and branding at Wichita State University. Beyond her professional achievements, she's a proud mechanic mom, welder wifey, and a staunch advocate for skilled trades. Catherine Bitting, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am stoked to be here. Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So listeners, viewers, if you're watching instead of listening, I did meet Catherine 2 years ago, I think now.
About that, yeah.
2 years ago at WSU Tech. I was a contractor for Project MFG. Catherine was the program manager, I think. Is that what you were doing at the time?
Yeah, I was in career services, other duties as required.
Yeah.
And one of the best dudes over at WSU Tech at the time was our lead welding instructor, Joe. You met Joe.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
And when Joe was tasked with kind of running the coordination from the WSU Tech side for the Project MFG filming for their national competition at that time, I believe.
Yeah.
One of the best compliments that I've ever gotten in my life was one of the VPs said to Joe, "What do you need to make this happen?" And he said, "I need bidding."
Well, you did make the experience amazing. I will say, I mean, your involvement from the coordination side, which is what I was doing for them, was absolutely spectacular. I mean, it made my job super seamless. I didn't realize how amazingly humid Wichita is in May. So it was a very wet experience for me, but it was a wonderful one. And I loved the area. I loved the school. Yeah. I loved the team that you guys had there.
And that was much a team effort. And I think that's part of the reason why you and I connected really well on that project. Was you were sort of the liaison for your piece, and you had multiple teams that you were, checking in with and making sure. And for better or for worse, I was sort of the interrelational piece for our side too. Absolutely. In that, and making all of those pieces go smoothly, right? Smoothing mountains, smoothing peaks, raising valleys.
Yeah. I meant what you knew.
But I think that's where we clicked initially. And I love that, because it's always great to see a kindred spirit. Yeah. I'm always a little bit sad for myself because I don't have an actual skill, Jim. I can't make a thing. You don't want me on a weld machine. Like, this is not the way of the world. So fun story. I volunteered for Joe Keane, who referenced earlier. I needed judges for Hills USA welding competition that was being held virtually in either 2021 or 2022. Might have been 2022. And so myself and a few other folks from the college said, yeah, we'll do that. It was essentially walking around with our smartphones and showing the judges who were remote what the welding students were doing throughout the competition. So the instructors were there. It was very structured. It was very regimented. But there would be a judge that said, let me see what's happening in booth 3. And so we would walk. So I got a welding jacket and I got my PPE and I had all the things, and we showed up there and there was like 3 of us. And I was like, at first okay. So it's like, where's the pockets? There's no pockets in my welding jacket. And one of the other instructors, Tony, was like, it's inside. And I was like, why is it inside? And he was like, so it doesn't catch on fire. And I was like,
got it.
That makes sense. And so like 8:00 in the morning, we're there, we're filming, and I'm having so much fun. I got my boots and jeans days, best days ever, right? Any day that you're in a shop, seeing what's going on, watching what's actually being made, my favorite time of day. So we're walking around 8:00 in the morning. I'm going to be a welder. Around noon rolls around in Wichita. It's now 95 degrees in an enclosed setting. Garage doors up, but weld shop. Yep. You all know what that's like. I don't want to be a welder anymore. Don't want to be a welder anymore.
I love it. I love it. All right, Catherine, tell us about your journey. Philly to Wichita. That's quite the story. Tell us how you got. Yeah. Tell us how you got there. I mean, aviation capital of the world, right? Or the US at least.
Yes. Okay, so I'll do the Cliff Notes. So I grew up in North Philly and single mom, right? Not a luxurious upbringing by any stretch. Had some supportive long distance family, and then had what anyone who loves fictional reading will know as a found family trope. So I have so many aunts, cousins, brothers, sisters who are not of my blood, but are my blood, right?
Yeah.
And I love them so much. Okay, so grew up in North Philly, ended up doing essentially a pretty traditional trajectory of grade school, high school, 4-year college, where I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go where I went. In retrospect, I'm proud and happy that I went where I did, but I wasn't formed enough to know that I had other choices, right? Yeah. And that it might be worth my while to step back and learn and grow and decide some of the choices. Didn't know that anyway, but I did the thing.
Yeah.
And that was in Eastern Ohio, right? And so this was, very early 2000s, and went to the coffee shop with my roommate at one point, saw a guy there with a Phillies hat on. Now, Phillies in the late 1990s, not a team that you represent voluntarily in public. So I was like, he must be from Philadelphia. So went over to this guy and I was like, are you from Philadelphia? And he was like, yes. And I was like, wait a minute. Are you from Philadelphia? Or are you from like Norristown and you're just saying that you're from Philadelphia? And he was like, I'm from Philadelphia. What do you like with me? Like, who? And no introduction, no hi, my name, no hair flip, no nothing. And I was like, great. You have a car? And he was like, yes. And I was like, can you drive me home on 4-day? Because I just don't have a car. And so it was purely mercenary. But that's my husband.
You came in hot.
20 years now this year.
Wow. Congratulations.
So we were friends for multiple years before we even started dating, and then started dating. He drove me back and forth from college, 6-hour ride, like multiple times. I had a captive audience is what happened there. So I can almost
imagine the chatting that went on, one-sided conversation.
The car in question, which is lying dormant in my driveway currently.
Okay.
It's in 1994 Jeep Wrangler.
Ooh.
Its name is Balboa. There was no working radio in the Jeep. And so if you've ever ridden for 6 hours in a hardtop Jeep Wrangler, you climb out at a stop and you continue shouting at like a 50 decibel higher mark. Anyway. Okay. So we did that. Married right out of college. He was in the process of earning his master's degree at the time.
Okay.
So we moved down to Augusta, Georgia, spent 4 years in Georgia, prettiest place we've ever lived. We got to a point where we were like, okay, so we can either go back to Ohio for you to finish your master's, or we got to start something different. And he was like, well, if it's going to work out, it's going to work out. And it worked out. And so we went back to Ohio for 2 years, had 2 babies in rapid succession. He finished his master's, did a phenomenal job. He's a brilliant man, by the way.
Yeah.
And then what did we do after that? Okay. So then it was 2008 and there were no jobs. So brilliant man, bachelor's, master's, philosophy, education, theology, just
Wow.
all in his wheelhouse, no jobs. We got an offer from North Jersey. They were like, we can pay you $28,000 a year. And he was like, and what dumpsters are for rent there for us? So we were like, great. So that was super fun. And then this is why I had a mental pin in this conversation through the power of networking, right? So the college that we went to, instead of fraternities and sororities, we had what were called households, right? So similar concept. My household sister knew that we had been looking for work for James for a long time and blasted out his resume and said, if y'all know of anything, hook him up. And so another household sister who I'd never met in my entire life, reached out and said, I got a job for you, or I have an interview for you. Let me hook you up. Anyway, so through that, he got a call from Wichita, Kansas, high school in Wichita, Kansas. Wow. And he answered the phone and they were like, hi, this is so-and-so from Wichita, Kansas. And he was like, okay, we got your resume. And he was like, you didn't send a resume to Wichita, Kansas.
Can you tell me where Wichita is?
With 1H or 2. I didn't spell that for me.
Wichita.
It's 1H, just so you all know now. I know this now. So I cried for 2 weeks. I didn't want anything to do with Wichita, Kansas. It was too far out of my comfort zone. We moved to Wichita, Kansas. And
wow.
Honestly, it's been a fantastic place for our family. It's been an amazing place in terms of community, in terms of just having a fun place to live. Plug for Wichita, Kansas. It really is. Like, it's a cool spot. I never grasped the concept of amber waves of grain until we drove to Wichita, Kansas from Ohio. That was a light bulb moment. So we got to Wichita, Kansas, argued over who had it worse. He drove the Jeep with no air conditioning, no radio, and the U-Haul attached. I drove the car with the children. So we eventually called that one a draw.
Yeah, it's tie. That's a tie.
No winners here. No winners here.
Nobody won. None.
So he taught high school for 11 years out here.
Wow.
And I started at WSU Tech in 2018, which was so much fun. It was, I don't work there any longer, but it was a phenomenal experience when I did. Yeah. And literally, like, the first week where they toured me around the NCAT campus, I was like, you guys get to, like, work here all the time? Like, this is amazing. And again, recognize no hard skills here on, like, but, like, just to even be in that environment.
Yeah. I still tell people it is one of the most amazing trade program campuses.
It is.
I have ever walked into. I mean, the amount of care, the amount of technology, it's very intentional how they've laid it out to be just a powerhouse of a place for people to go and gain these skills. I fell in love with that entire campus.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So here we go. Fun segue. So yeah. I was brought into teach a course called Blueprint for Personal Success. And it was, we called it in shorthand, how to be a human raised by humans, right? Which just sounds a little derogatory, but yeah. So this was at a time when 2018, there was massive hiring needs, specifically in aviation. And what the city of Wichita did, and again, kudos, hats off, they partnered with some massive industry folks. They partnered with educational leaders, and they partnered with civic leaders. Mm-hmm. And they created programs to offer individuals from lower, especially aimed at lower socioeconomic levels, right? Folks who didn't really have that heritage working in any kind of industry other than possibly service, and saying, hey, if you come to us for 6 to 8 weeks, we will get you a foot in the door with marketable skill sets to these aviation giants that we host in Wichita, Kansas. Yeah. And it was essentially scholarship. There was, a lot of times the students didn't have to pay any, out-of-pocket expenses. So it was a fantastic opportunity. But what was being discovered early on in that project was that so many of these individuals who grew up in a situation similar to mine, which is why it was near and dear to my heart, are not equipped with some of those employability skills. They're soft skills. Catherine Bidding hates the term soft skills. Let's be clear. Because it sounds secondary, right? It sounds as if it is you don't need that part, or it sounds like a detriment.
Yep.
They are employability skills. They are
Absolutely.
communication. They are critical thinking. They are problem solving. They are conflict resolution, right? These are not ancillary skills. They are necessary. And so that was what I was brought in to facilitate. And then I got to help kind of reframe that curriculum a little bit and really
That's
kind of
awesome.
work on that. And man, that fed my soul. I'm still not, I don't ever call myself a teacher, but I loved that class. And I loved and the students that I met in there, the men and the women that went through there, the ones that recognized it and said, ooh, I see, I get this,
Yeah.
right? Did amazing things.
That's awesome. I love that so much, and that was one thing that resonated and made me so happy when I was there working with you was the outreach and the connection to those underserved communities within Wichita, because a lot of people think Wichita and they think it's just middle class. Everybody's middle class in Wichita, right? Or really wealthy. They don't think about those underserved communities. I think that's a problem that we have across the country is
For
people
sure.
don't think about those underserved communities unless you're in them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you guys were very intentional in the way that you had that outreach going and the programs that you had there. Just absolutely amazing. So, what about your time at which WSU Tech made you fall in love with manufacturing? What was that moment? Do you have that moment where you're like, oh my God, I love this industry?
Know that well, okay, so again, initially that first week just touring, you're blown away by the campus, right? The
Sure.
campus
Yeah.
itself is just knock your socks off, right? But then I'm a people person, and so I got to talk to, that was again, right? Okay, so the PDV class, not super well received initially by a lot of the groups that the instructors were already hard pressed to make sure that they were communicating everything that you needed to be a qualified welder, to be a qualified machinist and airframe mechanic and stuff like that. So it was seen initially as, well, this is going to take away from my class, right? And so I'm from North Philly. I don't mind a scrap now and then, but if we're going to fight, I don't want to beat you down. I want you to love me. I want to make you my friend.
Yeah.
That's my goal. And it doesn't always work. I'm very sad to say. I do not have a 100% rating.
Nobody does.
But that gave me, so I had to do a couple things, right? I had to learn the campuses because there was multiple campuses that we operated on. I had to get to know the instructors, and I had to gain not only enough of a knowledge of their content, but I had to walk in there with an appreciation for
Sure.
what they were doing. Now, this is the beauty of this conversation, right? There is a gap, right? There's skills gap, we know that, right? But there are gaps in terms of communication and leadership and just sectors, right? It was a
Yeah.
very siloed environment, right? So I had to go and make time and find the welding instructors. And okay, this is part of why I love the welders, right? Welders are my favorite. I'm sorry, they just are. But they were also the ones that understood what we were trying to do and championed it, right? And so making inroads in terms of just collegial communication. Hey, I'm not your enemy. I want every student that you have to be as equipped as possible to be the most successful individual that they can be. I want your students to not only be equipped to turn a wrench, but I also want them to know, if they want to, that they can step up and have a conversation with their team lead, with the floor supervisor, with whomever. And let's talk about strategies as to how that might work and why that's a benefit to them, right?
Yeah.
Let's not just make this a temporary hard skill. Let's make this a pathway, right?
Yeah.
Let's throw down some paving stones for generational success, right?
Yeah.
And so every time that happened, every time I won over a colleague who no longer rolled their eyes and grunted when I came into the room, but instead was like, listen up. That was a win for me, right? But in that process, I got to see how hard welders, machinists, sheet metal techs, right? And you get to have, okay, you have kids. So Ratatouille, we're familiar with Ratatouille?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
You know when they're tasting on the rooftop and it's Remy and his brother Emile.
Yep.
Everything is either a movie quote, an 80s song reference, or some correlation in my brain, right? They're on the rooftop and Remy's taking bites of the cheese and the strawberry or whatever. And this system of sparks just sort of shoots out, and it's more than a light bulb moment, right?
Yeah.
And Emile tries it, and you got these kind of fuzzy little light, like flickers in the clouds, and he's like, I'm getting some, it might be the smoky, it might be the whatever. Anytime I could facilitate anything, whether it was the lightning reflective flickers or it was the full on, right? Yeah. That was a win for me because that was a win for me.
So, I mean, let's talk. I've done email, marketing campaigns, and I've told this story before on this podcast and somebody else's on the Manufacturing Happy Hour. I did an email drip campaign 2 years ago, about this time 2 years ago, and it was all about soft skills and how important they are in skilled trades, manufacturing, blue collar work, right? And I got hate mail back for that.
Did you?
Right? Yeah, it was people like politicizing, right? Saying that soft skills made me a liberal snowflake. Saying things like, I got a couple of just straight up F-offs. I got a couple of soft skills don't belong in manufacturing, right? So what is it, in your ideas, in your experiences, what is that disconnect? What is that mindset? And how do we rebrand soft skills into something that resonates with blue collar and with white collar? Because I think that a lot of the people with the blue collars on, right, they think soft skills and they think, I'm not a banker, I'm not a lawyer.
To answer your question, I think that part of the disconnect is that, and I think this is seen anytime you have a divide, political, ideological, sports related, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You are going to have people who feel very, very strongly about their side, right? Mm-hmm. And they will have also developed, for good or for ill, an understanding or a bias of the other side, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's what needs to be examined and, for lack of a better word, filled in manufacturing before you're going to see a fix with this, because you have the ones in the offices are the ones who are dressed in the button down shirts, right? Yep. Buttons means dress up. Yep. They are the ones who are often forward facing with management on the client side. They are the ones that are ensuring financial compliance. They have to be the ones that are ensuring OSHA compliance a lot of the times. And so they don't often get dirty, and they don't often, and these are generalizations. They are not often mingling on the floor, right? Sure. Then you have the shop side. And these are the men and women who are oftentimes dirty because they are working with their hands. They are figuring things out. They are, even if you go into a machine shop, right? Like, well, it's all digitized, it's computerized, and we're doing this, right? You're still getting dirty, right? Yeah. And you're taking raw material, and you are having to literally, whether by your own physical strength or through the means of the machines that you work with, you are bending that and creating something entirely different out of that than what it was when it came into the shop. Yeah. You don't have to, generally speaking, you don't have to talk to people a whole lot. In my experience, the folks who are on the floor don't want to talk to a lot of people. They are there because they love that they can take that concept that either they developed or someone handed to them, and that material, and they can take those things and they can create a thing, which is what I love about manufacturing. Yeah. And so you have that divide, right? Yep. I think in rare instances, you have those two where they're blended well. To an extent, in the trade college I was at, there was movement toward that, right? There was at least the acknowledgement that if you were an instructor, that you had some modicum of the finesse that was required for you to be in essentially the front office space, right?
Yeah.
But there was still a little bit of the, my buddy Joe would be like, he would sit in meetings and he weaponized this, and it was brilliant, right? He would get stuck on a committee or whatever, and they'd be like, oh, what do you think about that? He's like, I don't know, just a welder.
I love it. I do love that.
But if you know what welders do, right? And the amount of knowledge to be able to adequately, correctly, and competently not only do those things, but then to train a new generation on those things.
Yeah. So I think that that's a function of leadership in this industry perpetuating this, right? So what is, in your estimation, the role that leaders play in building and maintaining that respectful culture on both sides of the wall? So
one quick note is that, so again, like when I was at the college, basically almost every Friday there was some sort of it was field trip. It was boots and jeans days, right? And we got to go and visit a shop around town, right? And that was either somebody that a faculty had initiated or somebody that reached out. And so I was often there to work to be that bridge between the what do you need and the what can we do, right? How can we blend those things? I used to tell people all the time, I never invented the wheel. That wasn't what I did, but I got to go and dig in closets and break out some really old dusty wheels and be like, hey, this will work. Like, let's dust this off. Let's fix the spokes and send this rolling, right? We got to do that. My favorite shops, the reason I'm bringing that up, my favorite shops, and because I would do this, and it served no purpose other than my own edification, but like we would walk into a shop and real talk, right? As a woman walking into a shop, I would look around and I would say, do I feel safe here? Right? That was my first keynote. Do I feel safe here? Because there are so many conversations about get women into the skilled trades and do this. If you are an organization, I'm just going to say this. If you are an organization that desires to bring more women into your workforce, go ask 2 to 10 trusted women of your acquaintance. They do not have to be. In fact, they probably should not be in the trades. Ask them to walk through your shop and say, do you feel safe here? Right? Yeah. Are people making eye contact with you? Is there a restroom for you? Right? Is there a nursing room for you anywhere on campus? If your shop working nursing mother, who's a badass welder, has to go and provide sustenance for her baby because she's back from maternity leave, is she going to get a shitty side eye from somebody in the front office walking down the hall with her bag? Or are they going to say, hey, come on in. By the way, we made sure that the refrigerator's stocked. We got you, right? Yep. Because if you're not doing those things, what are you doing?
Yep, absolutely. I love it. No, I was going to let you just go with that because I love that sentiment. And typically those smaller shops, they don't have those nursing rooms. They have maybe a break room, and they're like, I'll throw a sheet up in the corner, while Billy Bob's drinking his coffee and eating a donut, you can pump in the corner, right?
So, I'm sorry. Definitely a squirrel. So this was this was actually almost like a flagship building that was newly renovated. And I made one of the men probably a little uncomfortable because I came out of we were touring and he was like, and that's the nursing room. And I came out and I was like, this is fantastic. I was like, there's a rocking chair and you got the refrigerator and there's I have 4 kids, right? These are things that if you want to retain women, if you want to attract women, do these things because we are not separate from our femininity, right? We are of a whole piece. So yes, embrace me and laud me. Don't embrace me. That's a little bit icky. Laud me for my technical skills, but recognize that I'm going to do my best for you if you accept me as a whole person.
Absolutely. And you shouldn't have to choose between a career and being a mom, right?
No.
No man has ever had to make that decision. Am I going to be a dad today, or am I going to be a professional? Right? Don't
Right.
make women do the same thing. If you want women to come work for you, celebrate that. Provide them the resources that they need. Provide them the sustenance to provide another human being sustenance. Right?
Right. Right.
Do the things that treat humans like humans. Right?
Yes. Yes. So am I okay? You also still at this point, and maybe in 3 generations this will change. I don't know. But like it would be remiss for me, it would seem naive for me to say, like, also if you're a woman going into the skilled trades, like you probably have to have thick skin. Like you probably have to be okay understanding that the vast majority of your male colleagues are going to maybe not be the most PC individuals in your world. Can you love them in spite of that? Yes. But should you be prepared for that? Also, yes.
Right.
Okay, so back to your original question.
All right. So
on the wall, right? So when we did the boots and jeans days and we're out visiting shops, right? And I'm asking myself those questions. Do I feel safe? Are people making eye contact with me? If they're making eye contact, are they blinking SOS and get out with their, with their eyelashes? Or are they saying, are they really doing the I see you and I smile with my eyeballs, right? Or is it like an in between?
Yeah.
There are 2 shops that leap into my mind locally here. Massive welding operations, welding machining shops where they either, when they renovated their shops, they intentionally created like floor to ceiling windows on the upstairs so that both sides were visible, right?
Awesome.
So the men and women in the offices had a clear view of the floor, which, okay, and you can read this multiple different ways, right? So on one hand, you can say, oh, well, they're just looking down on the lowly peons who are doing, right? And I'm sure that you could make that argument, but that wasn't the intent, right? The intent was that, and this was also a shop, I don't know that there's necessarily a correlation, but it's worth noting, this was also a shop that was a big proponent of the ban the box movement, right? So if you are someone who is trying to come into the workforce after having been incarcerated, this shop in particular did not hold that against you if you could show that you were working and had done your time and you were trying to build something, right? So I think there's this is an offshoot, I'm going to circle back. I think there's a lot of connection between build trades, education, working to end recidivism. These are all connected, right? So you had the folks up in the shop with the floor to ceiling glass windows, and you had the guys on the floor, right? And they did mostly like large structural work. So this is not a dainty TIG welding shop. Like they're hauling steel beams off of trucks and forming them down and building things with them. And you could see both, right? Fun fact was that a number of the folks in the upstairs who were doing the computer work started out on the floor, right? And so the argument that was made or the intention that was behind it was there's a path for you and you can see it, right? And I love that. I love that. I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. So leadership is only one component of this, right? Communication, I think, is another huge barrier between the sides of the walls. You've taught soft skills, quote unquote. We'll come up with a better term at some point. So what kind of tools do you think shops can use to address that communication gap between the sides of the wall?
Okay, so I talked to you a little bit about this in our pre-call, but like one of my favorite tools when I came on board to the college and they said, okay, this is what you're going to be teaching. If you've ever done like a personality test, I was asked what my color was, what my shape was, what my initials were, and something else with literally within like my spirit animal. We did a spirit animal one too. I don't know that one was like legit, but
sounds like a Facebook quiz.
Right? Yes, exactly. What Disney princess are you? So we had all of these assessment tools, personality assessment tools.
Yeah.
Which I think that there are room for a lot of them, right? My favorite is one called the temperament. It's temperament. So temperament quiz, and you can temperamentquiz.com. Again, not affiliated.
I'll link it.
Yeah, thank you. So again, my husband and I have been married for 20 years. We are wildly different personalities. I'm an external processor. I'm extroverted, which means that if you put me in a corner and you tell me, take care of these numbers and don't talk to anybody for 8 hours, I'm going to slump out of there like you've just made me run a marathon, right? I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be drained. If you tell my husband, go sit in a room and read for 6 hours and come out when you're done, he's going to come out. He's going to be like, hey, what do you want to do? Should we do something? Let's go do something, right?
Like, he's going to be refreshed, recharged.
Rejuvenated, refreshed. Yeah. So that's sort of the core piece of it. Are you extroverted? Are you introverted? Do you process internally or externally? Do you have a fast reaction to stimulus or do you have a slow and building reaction? Breaks it down into 4 different quadrants, right? Everybody's a mixed. What it does, what I love about the temperament piece is that it goes off of like your gut instinct. It gives, lays out, it's a question and answer kind of format.
Yeah.
And it says, tell me your gut instinct to this, right? And that's how it categorizes the 4 different types. And this dates back to like the Greeks. So this is not like a new fad thing. This is a sort of there's often truth in things that have existed for a long time.
Yeah.
And that for me, that was one of the things that we did the first week in class was take the temperament quiz. And then we also looked at like Myers-Briggs and things like that. The difference for me with the Myers-Briggs and things like that is that I'm going to answer questions differently whether I'm at work or whether I'm at home. Am I in my space zone at home? Because I'm not going to react or respond in the same way to someplace that something that's when I'm at work.
Or did your teenager yell at you on the way out the door that morning, right? Like,
right.
Previous experiences for that day
How
can
is that
affect.
coloring?
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. And I value a lot of these assessments, right?
Yes.
I think that there are some that are more Facebook quiz-esque than others. Pardon me. But I will say this temperament one sounds amazing.
Yeah. So the goal with that, right, was literally like, who are you as a person? That was one of the first things that we went to in this class, right? Who are you? How do you operate? And then can you recognize that other people operate differently? Why does that matter? Because, right, if I'm an employee in a shop, low level, no collar, blue collar, whatever, and I need to talk to my boss about time off, about a leave, about something coming up, right? If I can make an evaluation, not a judgment, I'm not talking about like labeling and boxing people. I'm talking about if I can read the situation, if I can read the room and evaluate certain characteristics of my supervisor, then I can take that information and I can phrase my request. I can choose my time. If I know that my supervisor is someone who does not like surprises, who is a clear planner for things, who requires a little bit of time to give feedback on things and is not someone who makes snap decisions, then I'm going to get 2 separate responses. If one, I go up, leap out at them after lunch and say, hey, Bob, by the way, I'm so sorry, but my kid's got a dentist appointment tomorrow afternoon and I need time off. And is it okay if I just leave at 1:30 instead of my 3 o'clock scheduled time? Is that okay? Bob's going to back the hell up. Like, give me a minute. I can't answer you right now. Go do your job and talk to me later, right?
Right.
And then if I do that, I'll slink back to my station. And then if I come back, Bob's already going to be pissed because I already, sprung that on him.
Yeah.
But if I know those things about Bob, and I can wait until Bob is maybe exiting the lunchroom or at first thing, if I show up 5 minutes early where I know Bob's planning his day and I say, hey, Bob, can I get 5 minutes of your time on our 10 o'clock morning break? I just got to run something by you. Nothing big. I'm going to go set up. And Bob's going to say, yeah, that's fine. I'll give you 10 minutes. Yeah. So then when that morning break comes around, I'm going to say, hey, Bob, I know that I'm scheduled to leave at 3:30 tomorrow, but I have this dentist appointment for my kid. Are you okay if I stay late today and then leave early tomorrow? Guess what? Bob might have a different response for you, right?
Absolutely.
So that's...
It sounds like it's an assessment to help people advance their emotional intelligence almost.
Yes, 100%.
Right? Because that's a big part of emotional intelligence is being able to read how people react in situations and what's going on around them. So this is just another tool to help advance emotional intelligence, it sounds like.
Right.
Awesome.
And then if you, okay, so let's look at this from a leader perspective, right? if you look at this, if you've got a team, I love the football analogy, right? I don't know basketball so well, baseball a little bit, but football is my favorite, right?
Okay.
If you're the coach for a football team, do you want everybody to be the quarterback?
Right.
Or do you want a quarterback who's got a solid center line, who's got a phenomenal receiving team, and you've got a special teams in your back pocket? Like, the value of differences should not be overstated. Like,
absolutely.
Just because you work differently than someone else, and I'm talking about functioning at like a societal norm, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But just because you function differently does not mean that you should be penalized for that. With the whole judge everyone the same thing, that's a crock of hooey. Like, that's a key thing. So I know so my husband is very much introverted, right?
Right.
Loves an author by the name of Susan Cain, who's done a lot of writing on the power of introverts, is I think actually the title of one of her books. We have 4 kids. My son and myself, just about the same, right? So and my daughter is very much carbon copy of my husband. And so like the beauty of that and the beauty of having that self-knowledge of ourselves is that we can try to parent in the way that is most beneficial for our children, right? Okay. 2 different kids. They both mouth off. If I give them the same punishment, they're going to react completely differently. Absolutely. If I say to my extrovert and I say, hey, that was rude. Go to your room. You're not going to Johnny's party tonight. You're grounded for the weekend. The world's going to end for him, right? Oh! If I say that to my daughter, go to your room. Think about what you've done. She's like, yes.
I just got rewarded for that.
Yes, this is fantastic. What else can I do, right? We were walking out of a high school football game probably about 7 years ago. And my children were old enough at the time to be fence children, right? They were all down. We were in the stands. I said, behave yourself because, out of every 20 people here know who you belong to. So don't dishonor the family. This is a key phrase in our house. Don't dishonor the family. I got a whole network up in the stands. And they all got my number.
So Philly. Don't bring dishonor to the family.
So they were fence children for the time that we stayed at the game. And we're walking out, and my son, the extrovert, is literally skipping. So much fun. Are we going to go back next week? Da, 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 da. My daughter's going, I'm so tired. They both had a great time.
Right.
Totally different. So as a leader, who are the people on your team? Who are the players that you have? And how can you play them to your strengths, right? To their strengths for your collective benefit, right? Because if you can do that, if you can recognize this person has a seriously analytical mindset, right? In fact, he irritates everybody because as soon as anybody throws out a good idea or what we think of as a good idea, he's calling out 5 different ways that it can go wrong. And everybody hates that. He's a Debbie Downer. Nobody likes that, right? Well, guess what? If you don't have a pothole spotter like that in your team, on your team, you will crash and burn. Pay attention to them. Maybe make them smile a little bit once in a while. But that's okay. There's a value in the different makeups. So
I love it. All right, Catherine, last question. What didn't I ask you that you want to share?
Make a really good cake, Jim.
What flavor cake is that?
Actually, I will even make cakes that I don't like, but other people have requested, and I can make them taste good. Boom. How about that?
Wait, so you can make any cake taste good?
Pretty much. So far.
What's your favorite to make? What's your favorite to make? I love a German chocolate.
Okay.
That is my favorite of the cakes is German chocolate. Yeah.
So I got to make for, I used to do it kind of as a side hustle. I don't anymore because children, but I used to make wedding cakes, make special occasion cakes for people. Yeah.
Wow.
So we made for a dear friend and her new husband over Christmas break last year, her wedding cake, and her husband wanted, it's very not PC, used to my heritage, Irish car bomb cake, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're familiar with the cocktail and Irish car bomb, this is a cake, right? So you got Guinness chocolate cake, right?
Wow.
And then you make a whiskey ganache, right? Throw a little Jameson's into your melted dark chocolate, and that becomes your filling. And then you wrap the whole blessed thing in a Bailey's buttercream.
My mouth is watering right now. My God, that's amazing. Well, Catherine, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. This was an incredible conversation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was so incredibly much fun. I will be listening to your podcast. Thank you so much. This was a blast. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Folks, from her journey from Philly to Wichita and her deep dive personally into the world of manufacturing, Catherine shared her invaluable experiences and insights today. We explored the importance of building mutual respect across the blue and white collar lines, and individual temperaments, as she brought up that survey tool, and we will link that below. She's an amazing person, folks, that has had just an amazing impact on the industry as a whole. Folks, don't forget to check out our website at mfgconnector.com for more insights and exclusive content. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram to stay connected and updated on all things manufacturing and culture. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with your friends, your colleagues, your grandma, anyone interested in the world of manufacturing. And if you have a moment, please, 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 I'd love for you to take the time to rate and review the show on whatever podcast platform or YouTube platform that you're watching or listening to this on. Your feedback not only helps us grow and bring you more stories like the one you heard today, but it also rockets us up the charts so more people find the show, which helps us put together more content. So folks, until next time, keep fostering a culture of respect, understanding, and innovation in your manufacturing journey. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Manufacturing Culture Podcast.